All right, next up on the line, we have Rob Sand, who recently tagged a ginormous deer in the state of Iowa on a Des Moines. What would be the exact phrase of that hunt opportunity?
I'd call it an urban hunt. They've got an urban hunting program to reduce population. So if you get 3 antlerless deer in the first year, you can get into the lottery to get an incentive buck tag for the following year.
That's really cool. So I've been kicking these off with the trivia question in regard to the state for the guest. So your question this week right now, what county and year for bonus points was the non-typical buck shot in the state of Iowa? So the county and the year, and then I'll tell you the score. And
all right. So I'm from Decorah, Northeast Iowa, and we have some huge bucks in Winneshiek and Almaquis and Clayton, but I'm going to bet southern central Iowa. So I'm going to go with Appanoose.
You're close. It was in Monroe County in 2003. Right. Yeah. And it was shot in 2003 and it scored 307 5/8 inches.
That's bonkers.
Well known as the Albia buck. So,
okay.
That's the trivia question for you. So let's dive into your most recent hunt here. We had a really good cold front. When did you find of this deer? This deer is a really, really big deer, and you have it here with us. So if you want to show us real quick, and we'll dive into the story.
Sure. Yeah. So I have been in the urban bow hunting program for about 13 years. Here's the rack we're talking about. He just got scored yesterday. Green score, because this was a week ago today, but 209 gross, 202 net. I mean, just ridiculous. I'm not even holding it out in front of me.
Man.
So this deer, a buddy sent a picture of it to me. I shouldn't, and I just kind of, I've never seen anything that big, whether statewide or in town, in the city here. And, I grew up, my dad taught me to bow hunt, so I've been bow hunting most of my life. Just absolutely bonkers. And so I just started, I went from where he lived and I started knocking on doors and making phone calls and cold calling people I never met before, knocking on doors for people I never met before, just saying, hey, there's a deer population problem in Des Moines here. And so they have this program and I'm trying to, I've been in it for a long time and it's very safe. You have to shoot from an elevation. You have to pass a marksmanship test every year. Just trying to make people comfortable and understand that it's, nothing scary. And I had some success and a lot of people who said no, probably a dozen people roughly that said no, probably 8 people that said yes. It was kind of interesting because you'd have it sometimes both a husband and wife would come to the door and one would be okay with it and one wouldn't. But sometimes it was the husband that was okay with it. And other times it was the wife that was okay with it and the husband wasn't. So just a real mix. But I went from where he lived, where he took that one picture that he sent me of it in velvet, absolutely bonkers. And I got on X. I looked at topography maps. I looked at natural funnels. I would take bike rides to this neighborhood and pay attention to which yards were fenced in, that kind of thing to really try to figure out where they're going to be moving. Mm-hmm. And over the course of August and September, slowly sort of, zeroed in on what I thought would be his home turf. And by the time the season opened for the urban season, it's a little earlier than the statewide, September 20th. I had a few spots where I had pictures of him in the daytime, a couple places multiple times. And so I was like, all right, I feel pretty good about this. I got a couple stands set up.
Were all 3 of these encounters, were they all from the same tree, the same area, or were you bouncing around?
Same area. One was in the same private property where I actually ended up shooting him, and the other one was in a different one. Mm-hmm. But it was the 2 spots where he was on camera the most during the day, and one was better for a south wind, and one was better for a north wind. And with all the heat, we've been having a lot of south winds, or we had been. Mm-hmm. And then finally, when this front came in, I knew that that first day of it was going to have to be my day because the other 2 days I was going to have to be out of town. So I went out in the morning, didn't see a thing. It was rainy. Went out again for the evening hunt. I actually ended up getting down out of my stand, walking the very short, 30 yards back to my truck parked in the driveway of the people's whose property I was hunting in. And sitting in there for a while because it was raining so heavy that I was like, there's no way he's going to be moving. It got real heavy for a while. So I just sat in there and warmed up and tried to avoid getting totally drenched yet. And then it lightened up again, 5:30, 5:45. So I went back out, got back up into my tree, and maybe 45 minutes later, I see a buck behind a tree and pull out my binocs, tell it's him, get my bow off the hanger. And at that point, he's maybe 40 yards away. And he starts coming towards me. And I had to move at one point, and it had been so wet that I slipped off of my climbing stick.
Oh, jeez.
And I've started saddle hunting probably 3 years ago.
Okay.
And I should say too, like I said, I've been hunting for a long time. The last time I took a buck, it was November of 2022. And I've passed on decent ones in 23 and 24 because I decided to get serious about my goal of shooting a booner. I've shot I think 8 Pope and Young bucks, but never anything over 170. Actually, I've shot 4 between 153 and 159. So they're all packed right in there.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, I got to quit doing that. And so I slipped off my climbing stick and my saddle catches me. It was real tight, but I kind of swung around the tree. Didn't make any noise or much. The rain covered whatever noise there was. And I was able to get back onto it, steady myself. And then he stepped out from behind that tree, 25 yards, and that was it, quartering away. So just perfect.
Do you think that the slip was buck fever induced in conjunction of the wetness?
I will tell you this. I typically don't feel it at all. The first, that 2 minutes into hunting light time when I saw him and the time that I saw him getting out of my stand, heart's beating out of my chest. I mean, I typically am just cool as a cucumber. This guy, I kind of freaked out. So it absolutely could have been. The other thing was I had kind of soaked through my regular warmer weather hunting boots in the morning. And so it was the first time this season wearing my bigger, thicker winter boots.
Yeah.
And so maybe it was a combination of wet, buck fever, and then a boot I hadn't been hunting in.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
What do you think had that deer hanging out there? Was there a bunch of acorns dropping in that little area, or what was the reason he was in there? Okay.
Tons of oaks in there. And then it was an area that had, for being in the middle of town, a really big chunk of timber that didn't really have a road running through it. And that's, I mean, I know there was other folks who had been hunting in the area, in fact, I know there were 2 on private property, because on my list of people to call were a couple of homeowners, and I'd call them up and say, hey, can I hunt in your property? And they'd say, yes. And I'd say, great, I'll come set up a stand. And they'd say, you don't need to, there's already one there, because there's other people that hunt there. And I'd back off. That to me is if somebody else already called, that's their spot. I'm not going to make them trade off and on with me for who wants to sit on a Saturday morning or something like that.
Yeah.
But so people know he's around. I was just in an area where a lot of oak trees, but there's a ton of oaks in that neighborhood. I would probably credit that for him, how he got so big anyways. And then it's just kind of like a little sanctuary area that was probably, from his perspective, big enough to be a real tight home turf without having to travel much or do much. But truth is, I mean, I know he had a decent range because I had some pictures of him spread out around a big area before I finally narrowed in on a place where I knew he was going regularly. And I can't tell you it was his home turf. I can just tell you that he was there often enough that I felt pretty good and didn't think I had any other options. Because the park, I know there's a big park nearby, and I didn't have access or permission to be hunting there. And I think some other guys were hunting there. And then there was a third guy who said he had people on his property too. So it was just a question of who had him with a good opportunity first.
When you had gone around and asked, 20 some people for permission, did any of them say like, "Oh, do you know of that giant deer we've been seeing in the backyard?" Or was that a common occurrence?
Yes. People knew this deer. A few of them would share pictures. And even if they didn't give me permission to hunt it, they'd say, "Oh yeah, here he is. He's out there. You can't hunt here, but good luck."
Yeah. Well, I mean, another data point as you're going through and pounding the pavement to get an opportunity.
Yeah, and then there was another time where I went up to this property that I really had pegged as sort of like, oh, I think this is going to be great. And as I'm going down the driveway, I look to my left and into the timber, and there's his little brother. There's the bachelor group, the one with the one drop tine coming off, and then one younger one, and they're bedded down in there. And so I'm like, bingo, score. But the homeowner was out of town. I had to try to come back a week later. I ended up getting permission from her, but it wasn't. I hunted at her property and had a few pictures of him there, but that wasn't the spot. But yeah, it was interesting. It's just a lot of and I should say too, for people who haven't done the urban hunt, deer are exactly the same urban as they are country. If they're accustomed to a person in a particular place, it doesn't bother them. And so you'll have deer that, they know they're going to see you in your driveway walking to and from your car. But if they figure out that you're up in a tree, they're going to freak out just the same as they would out in the woods. It's all about what's familiar and what they've come to accept as being sort of like safe and reliable. And in the urban program, you have to hunt from an elevated pitch and a tree because the city wants, if you miss, they want your arrow going into the ground. And so it's not that different. You still got to play the wind. You still got to be careful with your scent. Because you're up there and hoping that they're going to just not notice you. If they do notice you, you're busted just the same as you would be anywhere else.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's, I've never urban hunted, but there's always a lot of common threads on different people's perspectives. And I think a lot of times people that hadn't actually hunted in an urban setting, but still a really exciting game of cat and mouse on very small, very, very small parcels, which is a huge challenge.
Yeah, and the best thing to do, especially was really for me trying to find, if you can, 2 contiguous properties where you can get permission from both. Because of the regulations on, you got to be so far away from buildings and stuff like that. Sometimes you'd have to. One of the spots that I had was one where I felt really good about it because I'd had them on camera, but it was 2 folks next to each other, both of whom had given me permission. And that just gives you a bigger range, a bigger circle.
Yeah, for sure. So looking here in the next week, so let's say October 15th to the 22nd, for anyone that's out there hunting or planning to scout, is there any parting words of advice now that you already have one down? And what would you tell someone that's sitting with the tag in their pocket to focus on for the next week?
Yeah, I guess this is what was really interesting about this to me. I typically have not been big into scouting. I kind of hit the rut and I sit a lot and sort of see who shows up. And I might set up a few cameras to sort of see who's out there, This is the first time I really went early season. And normally I don't want to do early season because I don't want the bugs and I hate the heat. And I got a couple of thin pieces of insect treated camo and that was great. And you know what else is great about it? You don't have a ton of leaves down that are spoiling every single step with crunching as you walk around. And you don't have to bundle up. So, I mean, I guess I'd say if you haven't tried early season before, give it a shot because this is the first time I did it and you can really have a chance to pattern a big buck before they start going crazy with the rut. I guess I'd say over the next week, I mean, it looks to me like temperatures are going to be pretty consistent. I'd just say, you can't shoot them from the couch. I don't think there's any particular day that's looking better than any other, but as long as you're out there, you're going to have a chance.
I like it. Well, thank you so much, Rob. Congratulations once again. You've achieved your goal and then some, and got in the 200-inch club. So, I mean, you went from straight over 170 to straight over 200.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah,
congratulations.
No kidding. Yeah, and it wore me out. I mean, this cold I've got here is. I was exercising less and sleeping less for 2 weeks going after this guy, but I would say I'll recover from this, and this will last a lifetime. So.
For sure. Well, congratulations once again.